you're good to go.
All right. Good evening, everyone. This is the North Wasco County School District 21 regular school board meeting. It's Thursday, January 20th, 2022. And tonight we're actually starting off with a supplemental budget hearing. So I will call the supplemental budget hearing meeting to order. And to start us off, if you could all join me, and board members, please unmute, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the
and to
republic
for which it stands,
one
nation,
under God,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And Ms. Flath, if you can just give us a quick synopsis on the need for the supplemental hearing tonight.
Yes, long story short, Hydro granted us some funding to provide for some buses with DEQ in collaboration with that. And the second part is when you don't fund at a certain function level in a budget, you have to actually include it in a supplemental budget hearing. So those are the two basic components.
All right, thank you for that. And Ms. Flath or Ms. Miller, did we get any comments for the supplemental hearing tonight?
I did not.
We did not.
I did not.
Okay. With no public comments, then I will adjourn the supplemental budget hearing. And with that, I'll call our regular meeting to order. And the first portion of the agenda is a review and revision of the agenda. And does any other board member have a revision? I do have one revision tonight, but does anyone else have one? Nope. So the revision I have tonight is in our report section. So item 13A, we're going to start off with a report from our D21 Education Association and the ESP group. So they'll be kicking off that section, and then it'll follow with our financial audit and go on from there. So that's the change to the agenda for tonight. Any questions or comments regarding that revision to the agenda? Okay, seeing none. The next is a reading of our district mission and vision statement. And Director Rasmussen, could you read those tonight, please?
I had a feeling you were going to pick me. Okay, our mission statement is graduating all students to be college and career ready, challenging and inspiring and empowering them to be healthy and productive citizens. Our vision statement is North Wasco is a premier school district. We provide students a rigorous and relevant education with schools performing academically in the top 5% of the nation. Our students are inspired by a talented, innovative, and highly effective staff that values continuous professional growth. Our district graduates citizens who are ethical and motivated to achieve their limitless potential. North Wasco is fully embraced by the community, reflecting its health and well-being.
All right, thank you for reading that. Next on the agenda is our student and staff recognition. And Dr. Bernal, I believe that is your item tonight.
Yeah, so I'm happy to recognize all of our awesome board members. It is School Board Recognition Month, and so I believe our student reports tonight in our schools have put together a little something special in their student reports tonight to honor all of you and the work that all of you do. We want you to know that D21 staff and students and families appreciate all of your hard work that you do on behalf of all of us. And me personally, just want to thank each and every one of you. It's been a pleasure so far working with each of you, both individually and collectively as a board. And look forward to much more work ahead of us. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this time over to our students.
All right, thank you, Dr. Bernal. With that, we'll go right into our student representative reports, starting off with the Dallas High School and Sophie.
Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm from the Dallas High School. So first, we are dealing with a lot of absences from teachers and students. Currently, it is Comfort Week. We have a few fun activities planned for the students. We had a dress-up day for pajamas yesterday, and we have a flannel tomorrow for Friday. And of course, it is the Student School Board Recognition Month. And we wrote something that we wanted to say to you guys. So thank you for all the work you do. It doesn't go unrecognized. We appreciate you volunteering. Thank you for approving these events this year. The students had a lot of fun. With this pandemic time, we know it is a challenge to switch back and forth from online and in person. We know you can't please everyone, but you do your best, and we are so thankful. And I wrote a poem. It's not the best, but roses are red, violets are blue. The school board is great, and we are thankful for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Sophie. Any comments or Sophie? Just on behalf of all of us, thank you so much. It really is appreciated for sure. Moving on to the Dallas Middle School, Annabeth.
Hello, my name is Annabeth, and I'm going to go over some things about what we're going to be doing in February and about our virtual assembly. So in February, we have an ASB sponsoring a school-wide positivity month. Some activities that we have planned are daily kindness challenges, which we will be announcing in our morning announcements, and we are doing a spring door decorating contest and a pep assembly. In our upcoming virtual assembly, we will be making sure all students will be able to participate. We are planning on playing Trashketball and doing a worldwide school-wide wrestling Kahoot and teaching everyone the Wildcat cheer. We are looking forward to Trashketball. Students will shoot a piece of paper while standing 10 feet away from the trash can. The first Pride class to shoot and make 10 paper balls in the trash will win. For our February Positivity Month, we will also have a paw print appreciation. Students can decorate a paw print in pride to appreciate their students and staff members at TDMS. We will hang them up, all the appreciations, in the hallway for a positivity walk. On behalf of the Dallas Middle School, our student council would like to say thank you for your dedication to our students and teachers. You make tough decisions every month and spend countless hours helping us stay safe and be successful.
All right. Thank you, Annabeth, for that update. Trashketball sounds fun. So that'll be fun to hear how that goes. Next, we have a video from Chenoweth Elementary School, and that's Cesar and Hannah.
We appreciate your decision to open schools this year. You have helped to keep our schools safe, so we can come to school to learn and have fun with our friends.
Gracias por dedicar los esfuerzos académicos, los estudiantes y el personal. Gracias por entrenar necesidades, intereses, todos los estudiantes y representar el distrito en toda la comunidad. Agradecemos deseo de tener un legado de una mesa directiva eficaz y que funcionen bien. Gracias por tratar a todos con dignidad. Thank you for bringing the access to bilingual education to the Northwest Districts. Gracias por hacer el programa de inmersión dual una realidad. Estamos agradecidos por su mente abierta y su voluntad, escuchar profundamente a todos los actores.
Thank you, Rosetta. Gracias, señora Khan. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Thank you, Dr. Richardson. Thank you, Mr.
That's an awesome video. Thank you to Mr. Rundell and the staff and kiddos at Chenoweth. Next, we have Dry Hollow Elementary School, and Eleanor is here to give us an update.
Dear
She's mic'd up, but she's not mic'd.
Eleanor, if you can hear, I think you muted.
Eleanor's here. She just needs a second to get ready. She's here though.
Oh, perfect. Start when she's ready.
Okay.
Thank you.
He's going to take a deep breath, and here she goes. You can do it, babe. You got this. You got this. Okay. Well, this is Aaron Young. I'm Eleanor's dad. Maybe we can read it together. We have a little letter that we're going to read, and we're going to read it together. Why don't you come up here, babe? We can help you. Okay. Well, I can read it for her. Do you want to read with me? Having a little case of the nerves. I'm really sorry.
That's okay. Eleanor, we can't see you, so you can just feel like you're just speaking into the phone.
Okay. Do you want to read with me, babe? Or do you want me to read it for you? We can do whatever you're comfortable with.
Can you read it to your dad for us?
Okay. Well, is there another person that could go before us? Maybe we just need a second.
We can, Mr. Young. So we'll go on to the next school, and then we can circle back. And if Eleanor's ready,
circle
great.
back. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mr. Young. All right. So next then is Colonel Wright Elementary School, and I believe that's another video from Omad and Cadence.
No, I didn't get one.
We did not. Okay.
Eleanor. Should we come back to her a little bit later?
Yes. We can give a little time. We can come back. Okay, so we'll come back for the final student rep report, but we'll move forward. And with that, it brings us to comments from the audience about non-agenda items, our public comment section. Ms. Miller, did we get any for tonight's meeting?
No, not tonight, for next time.
Did not receive any. Okay. All right. With no public comments for tonight, that brings us on to our consent agenda. And on tonight's consent agenda is the school board meeting minutes from December 16th, 2021, and also an updated personnel reports. And any comment or questions from the board on either of those items? And if not, then I would entertain a motion for their approval.
I will make a motion for approving the consent agenda as presented.
All right. Looks like a second from Director Jones.
I'll second it.
So got a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented by Director Rasmussen and seconded by Director Jones. Any discussion before we vote? Seeing none. With that, similar to last meeting, I'll just kind of do a roll call vote to make sure we capture everyone. So starting off, Director Rasmussen. All right, Director Jones.
Yay.
All right, Director Nelson.
Yes.
Director Stevens.
Yay.
All right, and the chair votes aye as well. So the consent agenda is approved as presented. And let's see, I want to check in. Mr. Young, do you think that's enough time for Eleanor? Do you need a little more time? Okay, I'll take that as a little more time. The next item is just a review of our board action calendar, the months of January and February.
So Courtney Kaiser's in here with his hand up. I'm thinking he might want to come in and help for Dry Hollow. He's their ASB. Is that okay?
Perfect. Yeah, let's bring him in.
I hope that's what you wanted, Courtney.
Hey, Mr. Kaiser.
He's muted.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, let me go ahead and read what we wrote, and then I'm sorry, Eleanor's having trouble. She's a little nervous. She's a great kid, though.
We understand.
So, yeah, thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak with you tonight. Eleanor's in my class in 5th grade. The Dry Hollow students happily returned to school after their 3-week vacation. Now we're all working hard to get ready for testing this spring. Things are not always easy because we have missed so much in school learning. Well, hope we don't have to go online again. Student council has started at Dry Hollow. Meetings are on Mondays from 3 until 3:30 and are virtual. They're busy planning many things for our school. The Battle of the Books is also going on at Dry Hollow. PTA is up and running, and we have a strong program, and we appreciate all the parents and the teachers that are doing and giving their support for our classes. Here's an idea of what some of our grades are working on right now. 5th grade students are working hard on multiplying decimals. The 2nd graders are working on money. They're even making their own wallets to use. I could use a new wallet. The 4th graders are doing a science unit on the human body, and the 3rd graders are studying weather. The kindergarten teachers are getting ready for their 100-day activities they do each year. January, of course, is School Board Appreciation Month. School board members have many jobs and are elected to help their districts establish a strategic plan, create budgets, adopt policies, and select and evaluate our superintendent. That means you, Dr. Bernal. You're doing a great job. Keep up the good work. We at Dry Hollow realize that these are not ordinary times for you or any of us. We want to thank you for your leadership and commitment to our students, staff, and community. We appreciate your efforts in leading us into the future. Thank you for your dedication and hard work for our school district. We appreciate all the time you spend serving our board. You do an outstanding job. Thank you very much, guys.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kaiser, and thank you, Eleanor. That we appreciate hearing from the students at each of our meetings. And so that was the final student report. And so that brings us back to our board action calendar review for the months of January and February. And any questions or comments? I mean, there's no changes or anything. We've already done our district PLT meeting last week for the month of January, and pretty straightforward with what we have coming up in February. So seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to our school board subcommittee reports. We don't have a person on the D21 Education Foundation. So I wanted to put out to the board, we can either see what interest is there from the current board, and we can appoint someone tonight, or if not, we can wait until we fill as we move down later in the agenda once we have a full board of 7, we could do it at that point. So any preference, I guess, whether we do tonight or if anyone has a strong desire to be the rep for the D21 Ed Foundation. Mr. Director Stevens?
I'm comfortable waiting.
Okay. All right, and I'm okay with that if everyone's kind of in agreement with that. I think the only thing I'll just want to double check is that if there are any meetings kind of between now and say February or so that we're mindful of that, so we do have just representation, even if it's a temporary basis. So I will double check on that, and then February or beyond February, we'll get someone appointed officially for that position. So
if there is a meeting between now and then, I volunteer to fill in.
Okay. Okay. That sounds good. And Director Jones, did you have something to add there?
No, I was going to say the same thing, because there's not a whole lot on building facilities, because Kara does a really good job covering all that stuff. So the buildings and facilities report's usually nothing. So I could always take that one if needed.
Okay. Sounds good.
I'm fine with waiting.
Okay. All right. So we'll wait and appoint someone in a future meeting. The next subcommittee report is a community outreach team. Director Stevens, is there an update?
No, our meeting was postponed.
Okay. All right, next is the Wellness Committee, and Director Richardson is not able to be here tonight, but she did send me an update, which I will read. And it says, on Friday, January 14th, the District Wellness Committee met over Zoom. On the agenda was that they were recently awarded a $30,000 grant. 15,000 of it was in funds and 15,000 was matching in kind. And it's to develop a district-wide wellness program, which includes the employee wellness and needs survey. And then this program is going to bring us into compliance with policy EFA 1-5, local wellness program. And the goals of this program are: 1, conduct a district-wide survey to inform program components and design. 2, implement that plan. Components may include fitness competitions, nutrition focus, and stress reduction to meet the needs of employees district-wide, as well as students. And 3, monthly employee wellness newsletter encouraging practices and behaviors that enable self-care and stress reduction tactics. Funding will support the goals above, as well as innovative solutions to enable employees to meet the challenges of teaching and learning in a post-pandemic environment. And that is the update from the Wellness Committee. Which brings us to the Building Facilities Report. And Director Jones, was there anything there?
No.
Okay. Next is the District Equity Committee. Director Rasmussen, is there any update?
Yes, we actually had our meeting yesterday, and we are growing the committee slowly but surely. So we had 7 people participating yesterday. And we are working on a draft vision statement for the committee that's in alignment with the equity mandate from the state. And we also had a discussion about the equity lens for Oregon. And we also have started the process to developing a proposed staff survey to get some data too. So our next meeting will be on February 3rd. So I'll have a report, not probably next week or next month, because the cycle will be off by at that point. Well, yes, I will. Never mind. Sorry, February 3rd. Yeah, never mind. Sorry. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Director Rasmussen. Next is the Wasco County Forest Collaborative. Director Nelson, is there an update?
No, I don't have an update.
Okay. And lastly is the D21 Scholarship Committee. And Director Stevens, have you guys met yet?
We'll meet next week on the 26th.
Next week. Okay, so we'll hear an update in our next meeting. All right. That concludes our subcommittee reports, which brings us to new business on the agenda, and starting off with reports. So first tonight, we're going to hear from the D21 Education Association and the North Wasco ESP group. And I think Jody Ketchum is going to be presenting that.
Sorry. There we go. Can you hear me?
There you are.
Okay.
Yep, you're good.
Sorry, it confused me because it asked me to join as a panelist and I'm not used to webinars, so my apologies. All right, so our union, Sylvia is here. Sylvia Brock is the president of the North Wasco ESPs. And I am Jody Ketchum, president of D21 EA. And I believe Sylvia is going to take it away.
Well, first off, we would like to, on behalf of District 21 EAs and the North Wasco ESPs, we want to thank you. We want to thank you for all that you have done for us. I know this has been an exceptionally difficult year, not what you signed up for. Yet you continue to show for every meeting. You continue to be an example to our students of District 21. You never give up, no matter how difficult the situation is at hand. We see you, the students see you. You listen, you problem solve, you care. You have done everything you could in your own power and control to assure that every student is in a seat being taught by the amazing educators of District 21. You have literally saved many children, given hope, given students a reason to get up, get dressed, go to school, and don't give up. You have given grace to our staff and our students. You have listened to every concern of every citizen, even if your hands were impossibly tied. You have been conscientious stewards for the North Wasco County students, staff, and parents. We truly appreciate you. You matter, you make a difference. Please hang in there, and thank you for all you do. North Wasco ESPs and District 21 EAs.
I'm glad that Sylvia was reading that because it definitely made me tear up because it's true. I talked to lots of high school students, being the parent of a high school student, and I was very concerned about a lot of those kids. You really have saved a lot of kids by helping them to be in person. So we're grateful for you. At district office tomorrow, hopefully you can see this, is some Clint's gift cards for you guys. So each one of you gets one of these little envelopes to go to Clint's and hopefully pick something up that you would enjoy. So we just want to thank you. And I am also here to present the results. Chair Aparicio gave a update of our wellness committee. And we had done a survey prior to the wellness committee that talked about, that asked all of the D21 staff, including admin, anyone, it wasn't just union members, anyone to please fill out this survey. And it was regarding the pandemic and working through the pandemic and where things are at. And I wish this wasn't, the survey results weren't as grim. I hate to bring negativity, I don't know, it's not necessarily negativity, but I hate to talk about downer things when it's Board Appreciation Month. So my apologies, but the survey was, let's see, so you can see here, we had 205 responses. So we had a pretty decent turnout. We asked about people's current workload, and we are finding that people are having to work extremely higher or just higher than they're used to when they worked for us pre-pandemic. We asked people to rate their current stress level, which again is why this wellness committee, this wellness grant that that the district received through OEA is going to come in really handy, I think, because people are feeling extremely stressed. So severe and high made up, over almost 50% of how people are feeling. So that is a huge concern that we have people feeling, that extremely stressed. Again, we asked, you can scroll down a little more. We asked about, if you worked here for our district pre-pandemic and how this workload compares to a typical year. And people are feeling that it is more than a typical year or far more than a typical year.
If you were employed with D21 prior to March, how does your stress level compare? Again, it was, the stress level, workload, all of it is just it's really high compared to pre-pandemic. How many hours? This was concerning to me, that more than we had, let's see, 16 to 20 hours and more than 20 hours. That's pretty darn high. A lot of our staff are working 51 hours plus or 61 hours plus. It's never been a 40-hour work week for teachers, but it's increased, and it's also increased for ESPs. I've noticed a lot of ESPs staying past their hours, and typically they've been able to get their jobs done, in the contract hours. And even our people who are being paid hourly are working for free because they can't get their jobs done during the time. So we asked if they were considering taking a leave of absence. Fortunately, we had a pretty high response of no, but we did have, little over almost 20% saying yes, that they are considering taking a leave of absence. And again, of course, that accommodates or comes from the stress and the workload. Considering resigning, we had a pretty significant amount considering resigning. We had the yes and the possiblies were, even a little bit higher than if they're considering taking a leave of absence. So that concerns me. If we were to lose 30% of our staff, where would we be? Are you considering retiring early? That was still, about the same amount. If we lost that many people this year, that's a huge turnover next year. If we had 30% resign and 30% retire, we'd be in a pretty big world of hurt. So we did ask about the employee assistance program as a way to hopefully find out if people were utilizing that. I'm sure the board's familiar. The employee assistance program does offer some free counseling, free mental health counseling, or an attorney, or anything that you might need. It offers a few free sessions of that. And we were surprised at how many people were not aware of that. So as a union and working with CARA, we're going to make sure that the district staff are aware that that is a resource that they could utilize. The next question just has to do with EAP as well. If people have utilized it, most people said they haven't, but quite a few people said that they will be utilizing it. So that was good news, I felt. Which of the following add to your stress level? So this, I apologize that the way this comes out, you don't see, it could only print like every other, but number 2 right there where it says 76.6% is actually student behaviors. So people, oh, perfect, thank you for clicking on that. So student behaviors are our biggest, one of our biggest concerns, sorry. And then also the 80%, the additional student needs that are relating to COVID. The fact that all of our kiddos were, in isolation for so long, or quarantine, or we weren't in person for so long. And then when we did come back in the spring, we didn't see a lot of behaviors or a lot of issues because we only had, half of our kids. So it was easier to attend to each of their needs. And now that we're back full-time and seeing our kids full-time, we're finding that there's a lot more needs that we didn't realize. And of course, the pandemic, hasn't ended. So families are still under a lot of stress right now. So I think those were kind of our biggest issues. How do we help address the student behaviors, the needs of our students, and COVID safety were definitely our biggest concerns. So a lot of work to be done from the survey. And then down towards past all of these, we asked educators, all staff, what could we do to help? We did not feel that, so converting PLC time to educator planning time, typically we have that PLC time where we look at data and we look at different things to try to, adjust our curriculum and everything. Now it's more, we just need planning time because we know where our kids are at and we know that they're all at very different levels, and that's requiring a lot of additional planning time. So we're finding that converting PLC time to educator planning time is would be a huge bonus for us. Eliminating all the PD that is required to have a substitute. It's really difficult to get a substitute, but it's also really difficult right now to plan for a substitute. So we are asking that there not be any PD that requires substitutes. Those would be days that we would obviously leave and have a substitute. Converting student instructional time to educator planning time. It was a tough one. We had, so for example, other districts are taking a student contact day and converting it to an educator planning day. And between the threes are helpful and fours are very helpful. So we had, over 50% say that that would be helpful, but it's also a concern now because we had to use up so many snow days. So it might not be as realistic to be able to convert a student planning day to educator planning time. We realize that. Converting student instructional time to education or professional development wasn't a big hit. People are not wanting that. We don't want more professional development right now. We all feel like we have enough professional development. We just have to be able to have the time to implement it and plan for it. Reducing the number or length of staff meetings. People actually felt that staff meetings are still pretty important. So I don't think that that was going to be very helpful. Making all our staff meeting virtual. A lot of the staff meetings are already virtual. I'm pretty sure almost all of them are. We were getting to the point where we were just about to be in person, and several schools were starting to have staff meetings in person, and then it exploded on us again. So we're back to virtual anyway. So this question ended up being a bit of a moot point, but eliminating the statewide standardized testing. It's a battle because, as you all know, it's coming down from the federal level. So as union president, I've sat through meetings with Colt Gill and OEA and trying to get everyone to understand that now is not a year to test our kiddos with state tests is difficult at a federal level, but not at an Oregon level. However, we don't get to decide. We're dictated, as you guys know, by the feds. So we can't eliminate SBAC at this point in time, but our educators would really love to see that, because it's just, sitting a kid in front of a test and saying, here, prove to us how much you lost during the pandemic just doesn't seem right now. So, and the amount of time we have to spend preparing for the test doesn't seem right either. So it's difficult. We asked if it would be helpful to convert 2 or more student instructional days to PD and planning. Again, yes, over 70% would like to see that happen, but again, I don't know how realistic that's going to be with our loss of snow days. So we had more wiggle room when we didn't have the snow apocalypse, but now now we don't have as much wiggle room. Weekly extra hour, that was really popular. So what we talked about and what we've talked about with Dr. Bernal is currently the middle school and the elementary schools do have early release or late start. So pushing that back another hour, for example, elementary school gets out at 1:30. So instead letting the kids out at 12:30 so that there could be an extra hour, that would be helpful for all educators as well. So. And so then this, I'm gonna not talk about the comments because you guys have the comments separate, I believe. It was over 3 pages of comments. It doesn't show up in all this, and I don't want to scroll through every comment of every staff member. We had 73 responses. And we did break it down into different categories of what were people looking for. Were they looking for, what were the issues? Was it funding? Was it PD? Was it planning time? What were the different issues? And I believe you guys all have that. So I don't want to waste everyone's time going over the 73 comments right now. Not that they aren't valuable, but it would take a really long time. So, and then again, we just asked which grades do people mostly work with? And the majority of people were working K-5. You can see the responses there. And then there was just kind of a scattering of, it was mostly K-5 through 9-12, but then there's also people who work at facilities across the district, cafeteria, office staff. So there was a wide range of responses. So I was excited that we had so many people respond. Years of experience as an educator, we wanted to kind of gauge if we had pretty new staff responding, but it kind of split fairly well. We do have a lot of new staff, but we had most of the people that responded were between 11 to 20 years. So, and then the what best is, we asked also racial ethnic identity, and then the primary assignment of where they are and That light blue is actually general ed. So we had 48% of our responses came from, 46% came from gen ed, and then the plethora of, there's so many different definitions, job definitions. So we had, again, a really wide range of people responding. So that was exciting. So I think, the biggest takeaway out of all this is just that we really just desperately need planning time. I wish we could have more people in our rooms. I'm hopeful that indeed this spike that next week will be our big spike, and then we'll be kind of out of the woods for a little bit, and hopefully we'll get to have more volunteers in the classrooms. All people are definitely struggling, all of the staff. So we appreciate you guys listening. We appreciate you helping us brainstorm ideas, and we appreciate Dr. Bernal has given us countless hours and countless brainstorming with us, and we're trying. We're partnering with her, and we're partnering with Kara, and we're really trying to come up with some ideas to help alleviate it, to hang on to our staff that we have, and to not and to hire new staff and keep people in education. So questions?
Yeah, I think we'll start off. Director Nelson, I think you were first.
Yeah. I just would like a copy of that chart and stuff, just to think about and mull over, and just kind of, talk about this with other board members and sometime in the future.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Dr. Bernal, do you have the copies to send out, or you want me to, you're able to do that?
Yeah, actually, I included a link to what Jody just shared with all of you in your last Friday update, but I will include it again in tomorrow's Friday update.
Okay.
And Director Rasmussen, I'm assuming that was a similar question that you had. Okay. Any other questions or comments for Ms. Ketchum or Ms. Brock? All right. I'm not seeing it. Well, Ms. Brock, Ms. Ketchum, just thank you. One, for the kind words. That's awesome. I would say, at least for me personally, it's an honor to be able to work alongside you guys, because what you do is super impressive and super important for the kiddos in our community. And two, at least for me, seeing this information is great, because there's a saying of, you don't know what you don't know. And seeing it to me is super helpful. And I'm super appreciative of just also the solution oriented questions that were in there, because that is super helpful. Because a lot of times, I feel like we get presentations that are just data, but we're not hearing the solutions from the experts, from yourself and your colleagues. And this one you did, and that I think is super helpful, because we don't have that specific lens like you guys do, being in the classrooms or in our buildings. And so that is super helpful. I know you guys have done a ton of collaboration with Ms. Glass and Dr. Bernal, and it's super great to be able to see that, because I think it is a kind of all hands on deck situation right now to get us through the pandemic and just kind of work through all the challenges that we have, and to kind of get us to the other side. So thank you for all the hard work that you guys and your colleagues are doing. I can't thank you enough, just for everything you guys do. So thanks again.
Sure.
Yeah.
I appreciate, if I could say one more thing.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a solution oriented person, but I'm grateful to this board and to Dr. Bernal, because we actually have a board that is willing to listen and is willing to hear our solutions. So I just want to say thank you for that. We're willing to bring those solutions because you guys listen and you care. So thank you.
Do you have something to add, Ms. Brock?
No, I just wanted to say thank you also. Working with Dr. Bernal has just been a wonderful experience. She listens, she cares, and, we work together well, I feel like, and I think it's going to be a real positive experience. So thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone else, board or even Dr. Bernal? No? All right. Well, thank you so much. Our next report is our final report on the 2020-2021 district audit. Ms. Flath, and I think we also have Mr. AJ Olson from Friend and Reagan.
Yes, I see him popping in, and he was going to give you an update. long story short, our audit is finished. And I think AJ will give you a great overview. We did get 2 audit recommendations. One of them is, and you have your my proposed corrective action plan included in there. One of those is related to how we coded some maintenance, upkeep, building improvements. We had coded them as being repairs, and they really should have been enhancements. So it was amount it hit the threshold. The second one, and it is one the district probably should have had for a couple of years now, but just now getting to be the catch up of what audits do, which is writing up financial statements. And I'm sure every one of you have read the financial statements front to back, and I am a nerd myself, but my some of the details in there that has to do with post-employment reporting and benefits, retirement, and a lot of the other things, leases. There's all sorts of complexities in there, and I haven't tried to tackle that beast, and the resources and time it would take is pretty intensive. So I'm proposing we accept that audit recommendation and continue to let the audit firm do that. Essentially, you shouldn't let your auditors write your financial statements in theory. It's not a good check and balance, but they do a fabulous job for us. And so that's what my proposal is, and I'll let AJ talk.
Yeah, well, thanks for the introduction, Kara. I'm gonna you should have 2 letters and the financial statements. So one of them is the 2-page letter, which Kara kind of talked about. And then there's also, I think you probably have a 1-page letter as well, which is kind of what we call the management comment letter. I was planning on kind of going over those at the end and then starting with the financial statements and just kind of trying to give a broad overview. It's a lot of information, so I'm not going to try to cover everything. Happy to go over anything if there's questions about any specific part. And we can go over questions as I go through it or just at the end, whatever you prefer. I'm happy to pause and answer any questions as they come up, or like I said, we can cover them at the end. But I want to start with the financial statements. So if you want to turn to should be on page 7 for the financial statements. This is the independent auditor's report. So this is one of the reports that our firm drafts and signs. One thing I want to point out is the second paragraph, management's responsibility of the financial statements. And Kara kind of touched on it, but just want to make it clear, that these financial statements, they're your financial statements. Management's responsible for the preparation of the financial statements and ensuring they're accurate. Our responsibility as auditors is to perform our audit testing and give an opinion on whether we think the financial statements themselves are accurately stated. And if you look at the bottom of this report, in the opinion paragraph, it's at the very bottom of this page. We give an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements. So it means we think the financial statements are accurately stated. It's exactly what we want. Let's skip ahead a little bit to page 19. So this is a statement of net position. This is going to include all the district's funds, all condensed into one statement. It's similar to what you would see for a balance sheet for a business. This is prepared on the full accrual basis. So this is going to include your pension liability, all fixed assets, everything for the district. It probably looks quite a bit different than most of the daily reports you're seeing, because this is only going to be kind of once a year where we would make those pension journal entries, record the depreciation, that kind of stuff. And that's why you'll see in the liability section about 42 million in non-current liabilities. Most of that is just actuarially determined pension liability. And that can have some big swings year to year, just depending on what the investment returns are, the actuary's assumptions. And kind of like Kara said, it gets pretty complex. We review the actuary's reports. We record those journal entries to get all that recorded. And really the only place you're going to see that is going to be the statement of net position, and then the next page, which is the statement of activities. And I don't think these reports are super helpful for, most time day-to-day planning, these kind of things. It's more just an annual report showing everything included. There's also a lot of notes that'll talk more about how the pension, the different assumptions and stuff. So it gets pretty detailed. I'm not going to go over that too much unless there's any specific questions, but Those are the statement of net position, statement of activities. They're prepared on the full accrual. You want to skip to page 22. This is the balance sheet, governmental funds. So this is probably going to be a little bit more familiar to what you normally see. This is prepared on modified accrual. So it's going to have some accruals like accounts receivable, possibly inventory, prepaid expenditures, things like that. But it's not going to have your capital assets or your pension liability, more long-term assets and liabilities. And it's also going to separate your information by your major funds. The district only had one major fund this year, which is the general fund. The general fund's required to be a major fund every year. You could have other major funds if they had a significant amount of activity. But this year, the general fund was really the only one that qualified. Everything else is going to be lumped together in the aggregate remaining fund information column, which is the second column on this statement. And then you got the total, which is going to be them two added together. And you're going to see a very different ending fund balance on this report once you take out all the pension liability. And that's really going to be the big change. You want to skip to page 24. This is your statement of revenues and expenditures. This is also prepared on modified accrual basis. And this is same format, but this is more like a profit and loss. So it's going to show your revenues, your expenses, and then the ending fund balance, which will match the report we just talked about in the balance sheet. And it's like I said, separates them by your major fund. You've got kind of broad categories of revenue and expenditures. So it is a broad overview, and it doesn't get into a lot of specifics, but it's kind of a good summary of the district's changes in financial position for the year. You want to skip to page 28. So this is the start of the notes of the financial statements, which I kind of referenced earlier. There's going to be a lot of background information here, kind of talking about the district's policies or accounting policies, also changes in fixed assets, changes in debt. There's a lot of detail. Most of it's not really going to change a whole lot year to year, so I'm not going to go over it too much. There's a lot of information on the pension liability for anybody who's curious about how the actuary comes up with all that. I'm not going to bother going over that unless there's any specific questions. So I kind of want to skip ahead a little bit to page 66. Just kind of wanted to point out, this is skipped kind of past all the notes, some of the supplemental schedules that are more pension related, but page 66 starts the budget to actual statements. So you're going to see a fund report for every single fund that the district has. You'll see the budgeted amounts, how much the district actually spent or received, and it's just a good budget to actual comparison. So this is going to be, I think, more useful information, and it'll have every single fund the district has. I'm not going to go through every one, but this is the first one, general fund, and then it just goes through page by page through every fund, starting with the general. Should be pretty familiar to you, I'm thinking, and I think it's mostly self-explanatory, so I probably won't go over it too much unless there are any questions about a specific fund. But I do want to point out, once you get past these budget actuals, we want to skip all the way to page 99. This is the schedule of expenditure of federal awards, or most people call it the CFA. This is going to show your federal grants that the district received, how much of it they've actually spent in the last year. This is pretty important because if you spend over $750,000 of federal money, you're required to do a single audit, which is a more rigorous audit. It's also required to be conducted according to government auditing standards, which is a little bit stricter auditing standards for us to do when we do our testing. You guys as a school district, you're always over the $750,000 threshold. Schools are usually funded quite a bit by federal money. So we've done this every year since I've been part of the audit. And I expect that will continue to be the case. I do want to point out, if we skip to page 102, this is kind of a summary of our results of our audit. A lot of it single audit related. It's going to talk about our opinion that we issued, any non-compliance, if we found any significant deficiencies in internal control, And those could be deficiencies in internal control over the financial statement process or over the compliance with federal awards. So it's kind of two different things. You can have a good internal controls ensuring you're in compliance with all federal regulations, but then you might have a weakness in internal controls that might create a misstatement in your financials that really has nothing to do with federal awards itself. And we kind of summarize all of it here. I'm going to kind of, as I said, I'm going to come back to the 2-page letter, which is kind of your significant deficiency, material weakness letter at the end. And a lot of this is going to be kind of repeated in both places. Those are going to be deficiencies on the financial statement process. One thing I want to point out is that for internal controls over actual compliance with federal regulations, we didn't find any internal control weaknesses during our audit. And if you look at item 3 on the financial statements, summary of auditors results, no non-compliance found with the major programs that we tested. Item 1, you see an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which is plain opinion, means we think they're accurate and that there was no non-compliance. Another thing just to point out is if you look in the federal awards part of section 1, the identification of major programs, we tested 4 major programs that had to do with federal grants this year. And so those are the ones that we were really doing all our audit testing over whether you guys were compliant. There's a lot of federal grants every year. We don't test all of them. We do test a lot of the big ones, and there's a lot of specifications on if a certain grant is significant and we haven't tested it in the last 2 years, a lot of times it's required to be tested. But these are the 4 that we tested this year. Education Stabilization Fund has to do with the COVID money, which is obviously a new one and a major funding source. So that one was required to be tested. Child nutrition would be food service, school lunches, that kind of thing. And child and adult care food program is really similar. Federal forest fees is just kind of passed through from the county. It's really pretty simple to audit. And those were the 4 that we tested this year. And like I said, no non-compliance found with any of those 4. Section 2 is the financial statement findings. And like I said, I'm going to kind of come back to those at the end. So I want to skip those for now. Those are all going to be really the same things that are going to be in the significant deficiency letter that we'll talk about at the end. But for now, let's skip ahead to page 119, unless there are any questions about that specifically we want to address now. 119 is another auditor's report. So there's going to be 4 auditors report in total. There's the financial statement one that I already mentioned earlier. That was at the beginning. These next 2 are audit reports that are required because you guys meet the single audit threshold. This one is an audit report required by government auditing standards, which, like I said, is a little bit more rigorous auditing procedures that we need to follow. This is where we're going to talk about internal control over financial reporting, which is kind of the internal control over financial statement part that I mentioned earlier. And then on the next page, we talk about compliance with different rules, regulations, that kind of thing. And no non-compliance noted, like I said, clean opinion, everything there. It's kind of, in some ways, the next page is almost a repeat. It's slightly different wording and requirements, but this is on page 121, another auditor's report on compliance required by the uniform guidance. So the uniform guidance is specifically the federal requirements over the single audit threshold. The government auditing standards is a little bit different. That's just a kind of a different audit program or audit requirements that you may have. The reason they're both here is because if you are a single audit, you're automatically required to do an audit over government auditing standards too. So they are somewhat connected. One thing I wanted to point out on the uniform guidance, this is where we're going to give our opinion on the major federal program compliance, which is at the very bottom on page 121. We say that in our opinion, North Wasco School District 21 complied in all material respects with all types of compliance requirements that we were tested this year. If you go to the next page, page 122, this is kind of, as I mentioned a little bit, or a report on internal control over compliance. So as part of a single audit, we need to test compliance requirements that the district was in compliance, but we also need to test that the district has good controls in place to ensure compliance. They're kind of 2 different tests, and you might be deficient in one. I mean, if you're non-compliant, chances are you don't have good controls over compliance. So you're going to be deficient in both. But you could be in compliance, but still have weaknesses in your internal control that maybe you might be non-compliant in the future. So this is just another one where I wanted to point out we didn't identify any deficiencies in internal control, strictly over compliance. So it's all good there. If you flip to the next page, this is the last auditor's report. This is one required by Oregon state regulations. So this is a report where we're going to talk about any compliance with Oregon rules and requirements that we find during the year. We don't give an opinion on compliance with all these Oregon regulations. There's quite a bit of them, but we do note anything that we came up during the audit that we happen to see that was in non-compliance with the Oregon state regulations. And generally, this is going to be budget violations. Almost always, you're going to see budget violations here. We did note it 2 budget violations, pretty common ones. One over expenditure in the state grants fund, and that was in support services. And then on the next page, page 124, there was one budget change that created a new appropriation line item. So even if it's, normally you'd only need to do a public hearing if you're changing the fund by over 10%. There's certain rules with it, but if you're creating a completely new appropriation, you need to have a new public hearing every time, even if it's below that threshold. And this budget change was one that was a new appropriation, so it technically should have a public hearing that wasn't held in this case. So those are really kind of the 2 budget violations we noted. No other non-compliance. Like I said, normally this is going to be budget violations are almost always what you're going to see here. And pretty common normally to have 1 or 2 as you go through, but things obviously want to avoid if you can. Any questions about any of that so far? Like I said, I kind of wanted to cover the financial statements, just kind of give a broad overview of the different sections. I mean, it's a 123-page report, so I'm not going to go over everything in depth, but I definitely wanted to hit on the auditor's reports, which are the main thing that we're doing when we perform the audit, and just kind of give an idea of what the different sections are, how they relate to each other, that kind of thing. I do want to come back to those letters I mentioned earlier. Should have a 2-page letter and a 1-page letter. The 2-page letter we call the significant deficiency letter. This is a letter, significant deficiencies in internal control over financial statement internal control. So not compliance, like I kind of mentioned earlier. And we did have 2 either significant deficiencies or material weaknesses this year, as Kara kind of mentioned at the start. The first one was a material weakness. So that's more severe than significant deficiency. A material weakness could be something in internal control that may lead the financial statements to be materially misstated if the weakness in internal control, it wouldn't be caught. There's a chance that a material misstatement couldn't be identified. And generally that's before the auditors even get their hands on it. It's kind of a thing where we want to make sure that the financial statements really are correct before we've even started the audit. So we give a clean opinion because we believe everything is correct. In this case, there was an adjustment that we proposed as the auditors while we were doing our testing that Kara agreed with and made the journal entry. And so the financial statements all ended up being correct. But since it was a material change, we considered a material weakness in internal controls. As Kara kind of mentioned, this was related to repairs and maintenance and capital outlay classification. We just want to make sure that if it's a major purchase that's going to last more than a year, that it's classified as capital outlay in the financial statements. And the reason for that is because if it's not classified as capital outlay, potentially we might not see it and we might not add it to the capital outlay schedule. It wouldn't be depreciated over time. This mostly is just going to affect the government-wide statements, like I kind of mentioned earlier. Those are the only ones that are going to be affected by capital outlay. But it's important to get that classification right so that we can make sure we're getting that adjustment on our end. And it's something we usually do a lot of testing over just to make sure we're catching every year. But in this case, we did find kind of a misclassification there that was corrected. So just something we want to make sure get close inspection of it going forward and making sure that's all classified as capital outlay if it meets the definition. So that was kind of the first one. The second one was a significant deficiency. So not as severe as a material weakness. And like Kara said, this has to do with the financial statement preparation part. So normally, when the auditor prepares the financial statements, there's just a danger that there can be too much reliance on the auditor to prepare them, or make sure the note disclosures are adequate, just everything. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. And if the auditor's preparing it, management potentially might not be doing a thorough review and making sure they're taking responsibility for them. So that's just kind of generally, we're going to consider that a internal control weakness. And all our clients have this because we really prepare the financial statements for all our clients. It's hard to have, for a lot of these governmental entities to have, a very thorough accounting staff that can do all this work and prepare this and, stays up to date and on all the GASBs to prepare them. We still want, obviously a good review to happen. That's why it's important to kind of point this deficiency out, is just to bring it to attention and really stress the importance of a good review of the financial statements before they're finalized. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here by pointing it out. We don't have a recommendation for any changes. It's just, just really want to stress the importance of a good review, being aware of that. And those were the two significant deficiencies, material weaknesses. Kind of want to briefly touch on the one-page letter 2, which is what we call kind of the management comment letter. These are going to be usually minor issues or recommendations we have that aren't severe enough to go to the significant deficiency letter. This is a letter more for management and the board's information. Doesn't get reported to the state, doesn't need to be addressed. Just something we want to bring to your attention, and hopefully, kind of either if it's a recommendation, make some changes to maybe improve controls a little bit, or if it's just a minor finding we find, just kind of bring attention and like make sure it's not a repeat finding next year or comment. So in this case, there was just a little bit of a discrepancy with some of the budget changes that occurred during the year and how they got recorded in the trial balance that we initially used when we were preparing the financial statements and doing our audit procedures. So just something that once we brought it to Kara's attention, got corrected, brought in, didn't affect any actual numbers. It was only budget that was affected and corrected. So just kind of not something that we consider a financial statement deficiency and controls, but just something, wanted to point out and make sure that reconciling the budget resolutions as every budget change is made, make sure that's getting entered appropriately into the trial balance and everything's matching. Just kind of think that'd be a good control going forward to kind of make that change there. And really, I mean, those were kind of the issues we found during the audit. Pretty much, like I said, some minor budget violations. The material weakness is the big one on capital outlay classification, and then significant deficiency on financial statement preparation that, like I said, pretty much all our clients have. But happy to go over any questions about any of that. If anybody wants to clarify some of that, I kind of went fast, gave a broad overview. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them or go into detail on anything.
And it looks like we have a question from Director Rasmussen.
Thank you. Regarding finding 2021-01, inadequate monitoring of capital outlay classification, it said that there was a material understatement in capital outlay expense. Can you give us a dollar amount? And was that, I'm thinking from a financial risk management perspective, has that impacted our financials? And I'll let you answer that one. And I have another question after that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. So it's, we give a clean opinion on the financials. So that means everything's been corrected at this point. The financials are accurate. The capital outlay is now included. What it was when we did our testing, it looks like it was in total about $500,000 of seismic grant expenditures and irrigation, I think it was, that got reported as repairs and maintenance. And obviously that's a significant amount to be repairs and maintenance. So that's why when we investigate it, we're like, should that have been more accurately classified as capital outlay? And I think kind of that's where it comes back to the control issue. Is it's more, is there a very thorough review being done of how this expenditure is being classified in the moment? And I think that's where, capital outlay and repairs and maintenance, just kind of stressing the importance of getting those separated. And yeah, and like I said, financial statements are accurate. Those have all been corrected, but that's the dollar amount that was proposed and adjusted.
Thank you very much. And my second question is regarding finding 2021-02 financial statement preparation. Earlier in this meeting, the CFO said we really shouldn't let our auditors do our financials. There's no check balance. And for me, that's rather alarming statement to make. You know, I am a big proponent of full transparency and visibility, and I don't know. I'm a little concerned not only with this finding, but then that statement is very alarming to me. So can either you or the CFO explain that a little bit more for me? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I'll start and just give my take on it. It's I think you know, I think mostly it's more the reason it's a significant deficiency, and the reason it's reported is because it would be optimal to have like an accounting staff that has the time and, you know, knowledge to prepare the full financial statements before the audit even begins. And I think that would be a perfect scenario with really good internal controls in that case. Like I said, none of our clients really have that in place. So it's, I wouldn't, and I do think it's very important, like I said, to have the thorough review to make sure there are, you know, good checks and balances, to make sure that, you know, the auditors having somebody looking over their shoulder, because a lot of these, you know, pension and OPEB expenses can get pretty complicated, and it's very valuable to have somebody reviewing, doing a thorough review and really checking everything. And it's not just pension and OPEB, it's really everything. It's just, you know, you really want to have a good check on the financial statements as a whole before they're issued. So I think it's, I guess my take on it is I would really stress the importance of that thorough review. And, you know, when we meet during the audit, you know, we make sure, you know, we're on the same page with that. Kara and I talked about that, make sure that's an important part of the audit process. But I think us preparing the financial statements in and of itself, I wouldn't consider that to be this big problem with checks and balances necessarily.
Yeah, and let me add to that, Don. I don't mean to make it sound dramatic like that. It's ideal. And sometimes I put on my old hat, which is I oversaw all of school finance and usually was on the flip end of this, but it's a fairly common practice for districts this size and smaller to, assuming you meet the Single Audit Act requirement, to have your auditors do that because the complexities. And AJ was a good sport because I was like, well, what if I do them and I mess up OPEB or I mess up this? Because it is pretty complex. What's that going to do? And he's like, well, still a deficiency, which it is. And that's fair. So the expertise is what they have. And I think he's absolutely right. It would, I say that, but we still do all of our own books. We still review it. We still are responsible for that. They're taking that and putting it into our financial report for us. But I still go through and check it. So it's not like it's, oh, I'm just letting them do everything from here and I don't go in and check it because we're required to as well. So, you know, it's important. So I don't mean to make it sound like it's a really bad idea. It's a common practice for districts this size. And that's why on the corrective action plan, I say, I agree with it. It's not ideal. I totally agree. But at the same time, I think it's acceptable to the alternative, which is, you know, either me going out and doing some serious training to get skilled up to do that, and then me spending all the hours it's going to take to get it done, as opposed to all the other things that I can be doing. So let me say that. Thank you. Good question, though.
Any other questions, comments for either Ms. Flath or Mr. Olson? All right, I did have one, and it's kind of just looking ahead. You know, with the closure of Riverbend's charter, right? So we're going to be in a scenario where 5-6 months was kind of done under that board and that financial team, and then you know, we're in the process of getting all that absorbed back. So how's, I guess just from my own knowledge, how's that work? Are we going to be audited on the full year, or is it going to be two different audits where we have a partial independently for what was the first 5-6 months at Riverbend, and then the rest of it just kind of flows into ours? Or what's that going to look like looking ahead to next year?
Sure. In Riverbend is an independent, you know, nonprofit organization that is run independently. So they're going to have to do a final closeout audit, and they're in the works of doing that. They're still resolving their final books, and they're working with Oregon Department of Education, the district, and they have a legal attorney, I can't remember her name, but then they'll be absorbed under the district, which they are now, and they'll run through our finances. So it'll be two separate entities entirely, if that helps.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's helpful. All right. Any other questions or comments for?
Can I add something? Just in response, some of the items at the end that AJ was talking about with the budget deficiencies and budget in general with the recommendations that go to ODE and that compliance. A couple of those, a few months ago, I had changed the format of some of the financial reporting, and that was because of that particular thing that they pointed out. So historically, we have, I'll say, squished together all of our state special funds, and I split them all out so you can see our grants and our federal grants, state grants, federal grants. You can see all of those separately now as far as each budget item. So that was a result of that, because that was a good learning lesson for Kara. I appreciate they've been very helpful. Then the other one that you actually see on the supplemental hearing today is convenient, because that particular amount is a really small amount, but it's because we didn't have any appropriation in that particular account. And that was one of the suggestions from before. So AJ and the team over there have been great to work with, and I ask them questions all the time, and I really appreciate their help, and thank you. And we're always going to aspire to do better. So thank you.
All right. Thank you for that, Ms. Plath. Any other comments or questions from the board? If not, there's a couple action items needed tonight regarding or around the financial report. So if not, we'll move on to those. Not seeing none. So the first action item is the approval of the 2020-2021 district audit report as it was presented tonight. Yeah, Director Nelson.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the district audit report as presented.
All right, do I've got a second on that? All right, seconded by Director Rasmussen. So got a motion to approve the 2020-2021 district audit report as presented, and seconded by Director Rasmussen. Any further comments or discussion on that? If not, we'll move to a vote. Not seeing none. All right, we'll do a roll call again. Director Rasmussen.
Yes.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Director Nelson.
Aye.
Director Stevens.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. And the next action item is the approval of the plan of action for North Wasco County School District as presented.
I'll move to approve resolution. It's a resolution number 20-22-02. Resolution adding appropriations from unanticipated revenues.
That's the incorrect one, Director Nelson. This is the corrective action plan that we'll be submitting to the Secretary of State's office.
Sorry about that.
I have a comment. There needs to be a correction on the top line. It says the date action requested motion to corrective action plan to the Secretary of State. It should be submit. Motion to submit corrective action plan to the Secretary of State. If we can make that change, that'd be great.
Okay. All right, any other comments or clarifications on that? If not, I'll entertain a motion for this action item.
I will make a motion to submit the corrective action plan to the Secretary of State.
All right, we've got a second on that.
I second.
All right, seconded by Director Stevens. So got a motion to approve the plan of action for Northwest County School District to this Secretary of State with the modification on the line there to add the word submit, and seconded by Director Stevens. Any further discussion or comments around that? If not, we'll go to a vote. And seeing none, Director Rasmussen.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Director Nelson.
Aye.
Director Stevens.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. All right. And that was all the action items. Anything else under this presentation, Ms. Plath? Okay. With that, we'll move on to our next report, which is the superintendent's report, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Bernal.
Great, thank you so much. And I will wait. Awesome. So thank you so much. Share a little bit about, hold on. I thought I would just share a little bit about sorry about that. My Zoom just quit unexpectedly. I'm back. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we're good.
All right. Sorry about that. So anyway, tonight I thought I would share with you all just interim progress towards goals. As you know, back in July, I shared with you my entry plan that had 4 primary goals. And earlier today, I did email all of you a more, much more in-depth explanation of each of the steps in my goals and my progress towards those goals. But for purposes of tonight's presentation, I'll be more simplistic and brief. Next slide, please. As you know, I've always talked about how my style of leadership is one of listen, learn, and lead. And I have talked greatly about how I do quite a bit of listening and have been on this journey of listening since entering into this position as superintendent of D21. And I've been doing a lot of listening to all of our stakeholders, both inside and outside of the district and in the community and outside the community, and learning lots about D21 and learning lots about the community of the Dalles. I've also learned quite a bit about just the weather here in the Gorge. And had a really interesting week back after winter break and all of the experiencing the different days of weather that we experienced. And I would call myself still a snow novice. I am by no means a snow expert. I think it's going to take me definitely a few more years of snow before I ever call myself a snow expert. So my husband did most of the driving when it snowed. I was too chicken to like get out there and actually drive. So it's going to take me a little time. I'll get there though. So anyway, in taking all of that information that I've been listening and learning and really synthesizing all of that information as I lead and make decisions on a daily basis as we move forward together to do what's best for the kids and families of D21. So next slide, please. Goal number 1 that I had set out was to build trust with all stakeholders, and I had identified 7 action steps within that goal. And so far, I have been able to complete 5 of those 7 action steps, but I also say that they're completed, but they're also ongoing because I, as a learner, am always on a journey to continue to learn, and I don't ever see anything as complete. I always want to continue to be ongoing. So those action steps are ongoing because I want to continue to delve into each of those action steps and make sure that we are continually learning and growing. And then in those other action steps 6 and 7, I highlighted. One was parent engagement. We've not had great opportunities to really engage our parent in the traditional ways that we would engage our parents this year due to the pandemic. Even though we are in person with our kids, we've not been able to bring our parents into our schools for the traditional things that we would normally bring them in non-pandemic times, such as back to school nights, open houses, parent education nights, all of those great big events that we normally would do that bring in parents and give us those opportunities to engage our parents in those different opportunities. In non-pandemic times, we've not yet been able to do. So we're strategizing and developing other ways that we can begin to engage our parents, and that'll be a heavy focus for us in these next coming months. The other one was the Superintendents Roundtable, and that's all about engaging our student leadership, and that will be another primary focus in these coming months. Next slide, please. Then my next goal was to listen and learn with a lens on equity. And 4 of the 6 action steps that I had identified from that goal have been completed. And again, I say they're ongoing because they will always be ongoing. And action step 5 was about doing a deep dive into professional development of our staff. And that one I will say is definitely going to continue to be in progress and ongoing, and continue to analyze these next months. I will say, as you heard tonight from our association, with the staff burnout and the overload going on, professional development right now is not a top priority for people right now. And I get that, and I understand that, and I identify with that, but still want to do an analysis of professional development and where everyone is at. So that'll still continue to be a heavy focus these next months. And then action step 6 is also about stakeholder dialogue and classroom equity. And that will continue to be in progress and ongoing these next few months. And I think with goals 1 and 2, the action steps that are outstanding to be completed, what's really going to help in all of those areas will be the commencement of our strategic planning process, which is set to kick off in these coming weeks. So we're excited to have that get started and underway. Next slide, please. The next goal was to develop a strong governance team and positive board superintendent relationship. And 6 of the 7 action steps that I had identified have been completed, but again, are always ongoing. And I did put in our little superhero logo there for all of you, because I do just want to again recognize that it is School Board Recognition Month, and I recognize how hard all of you have been working, and do appreciate and value the work that you do each and every day on behalf of our students and families. One outstanding step, of course, is the superintendent evaluation process. And Chair Aparicio and I did talk the other day about how we do need to initiate and ensure that we complete that process in a timely manner. Next slide, please. Lastly, goal 4 was to safely reopen our schools for fall 2021. And I'm happy to say all of the action steps that we had identified for that goal have been completed, although they are ongoing. Tomorrow, we will complete week 18 of reopening schools, and we are still fully reopened. We have not had to transition any of our schools yet to distance learning, although earlier this week we did send out a letter to our parent community, just letting them know, we are monitoring things on a day-to-day basis and taking things one day at a time. We are monitoring the safety and health conditions for both our students and staff on a daily basis. We are seeing quite a bit of a spike, both in our students and our staff right now. And so we do just have to take things one day at a time and evaluate each school's ability to operate in a safe and healthy way each day. And we do have plans in place if we do need to shift on a temporary basis, either a school or more than one school to temporary distance learning. We hope that's not the case. We know that this spike that's going on, they're saying the spike is supposed to hit its peak by the end of next week. So we are fingers crossed we can get through the spike, and we're hanging in there. I will tell you, I continue to be astounded by the D21 staff that continues to show up every day and work hard on behalf of the families and students. So we have a really great team of people that really pull together to try and make sure we have coverage everywhere. So that's kind of an interim report on progress towards goals. And then last, I just wanted to talk briefly about quickly and give a quick update on extracurriculars. Next slide, please. As you know, this past week, we did do a temporary pause on our middle and high school athletics. And the reason we did a temporary pause, I had been in communication with our athletic director, Mr. Brost, for most of the weekend. We had been in communication a variety of times, and he had been keeping me up to date on some positivity rates we were having with some of our athletic teams. And it became clear by early Monday that we were having such a high positivity rate in several of our different teams that it probably was in the best interest that we maybe put a little pause on practices and games so we could allow our student athletes the opportunity to get healthy so that they could then re-engage and be able to complete the winter sports season. So we talked with the coaches and the administration at the high school and middle school, and collectively we decided it was best to just pause for this week, pause practices, pause our games. And we also knew that it wouldn't be responsible for us to put unhealthy teams in play, nor would it have been responsible for us to host outside teams coming in knowing we had unhealthy teams playing. So we paused it for this week. And our goal was to hopefully that give our kids time to get healthy this week and be able to resume play next week. So I have been in communication with Mr. Brost. He's going to hopefully be updating me, hopefully at the end of tomorrow or this weekend, about how we're looking for next week. And hopefully we'll be able to resume practices and games next week. I know he's been very busy this week, rescheduling the games that we had to postpone this week and getting them back on calendar. We did, however, our after-school program at Chenoweth, and then any of our after-school clubs, those, however, were allowed to continue because those, of course, are masked settings. Kids continue to stay masked when they're in the after-school program and or the after-school clubs. So those were allowed to continue. I know some people had gotten the question, well, why did we pause extracurriculars? But we didn't move kids to online school. And one of the primary differences everyone needs to remember is that when kids are in school, they are masked, and we have a lot more protective layers in school. But kids who are playing sports and extracurriculars are unmasked. And so there's a lot more opportunities for the virus to spread much more rapidly. And so we did see quite a few more positive cases this week popping, and it was spreading quite quickly, and we just didn't feel it was a good idea. Give our kids some time to get healthy so they can finish the winter season strong. So we hope that by the end of this week, they'll be strong enough and we can resume next week. And that is the end of my report this evening. Is there any other questions? Unless anybody has any questions?
Any comments, questions, or? Okay. I want to say how appreciative I am. I know early on, before the start of the school year, we set out to make sure that we did what we needed to do to keep kids in our buildings and fully reopened, and try and avoid as best we can to not go back to CDL. And so I'm super appreciative of not only your leadership, Dr. Bernal, but our staff and everyone involved to kind of make that happen, because it is a team effort. There are a lot similar, exactly like you said, there's a lot of layers to it that, from cleaning and everything else that we do in the buildings that allows us to have our kids. And I'm super appreciative because, I think that was a very loud and clear message to me in a lot of those student reports today, is that they're all super happy to be in the buildings along with their peers, learning in the buildings. And then as well, those extracurriculars play a big part for those students to do participate in that. And, while we have to take a pause, I think in the big picture, making sure that we're able to continue our seasons and provide those opportunities. I know that for some of the sports, we've seen some of the largest turnout that we've had in the years past. And, for me, it's important to be able to continue to create and provide those opportunities for those kiddos that are in those athletic programs. So just appreciative that we're taking it as seriously as we can and making sure that we're doing it in the most safe manner that we can.
And I would just add that, we're not alone. Other districts are experiencing the same exact thing. And some are having to transition to distance learning temporarily. A lot are having to pause, do a temporary pause on their extracurriculars, rescheduling of games, rescheduling of practices. There's, all school districts are experiencing things at different degrees and levels. And in talking with other superintendents, we are all experiencing staffing shortages, and everyone is taking it one day at a time and evaluating every single day, one day at a time.
All right, and any other comments or questions from the board? If not, we'll go on to the next item under the superintendent report, and that is board member resignation. And so in our package, we have the two policies that kind of govern this. So that's board policy BBC, board member resignation, and board policy BBE, vacancies on the board. And so last week I did receive a phone call from Director Thistlethwaite, and she did verbally give me her resignation. And so I did let Dr. Bernal know, and so that we can kind of get prepared for this meeting, because with the verbal resignation, we've gone past the 3 business days. So I've not received a written statement or anything from Director Thistlethwaite. The verbal that she gave me is her desire at this point. So, from our conversation, it really is an awesome opportunity and situation for Director Thistlethwaite that she has in her professional life. She's got, I think, $1 million+ in grant money, and talking about expanding staff, on her work life. And so it really sounds like such an awesome opportunity for her. While I hate to see her go, it just sounds like an awesome professional opportunity for her that she has worked so hard to secure those grant funds and whatnot. And then the other thing that I don't know a lot of people realize, but in addition to her service on the board, she took on the administrative director role for the North Wasco County Education Foundation. And so, that's taken a lot of her time, and things that we've seen kind of towards the end of last year, like the Golden Apple Awards and some of those other elements, are a direct result of her work in that endeavor. And she's going to continue to do that and work through that. So, we'll still be seeing Rebecca around. And I just want to say I'm super appreciative of her service on the board. It was a joy to kind of work with her and get her lens that she brought to the team. And so I wish her the best in both her professional life and as she continues to work on the Ed Foundation for the district. But with that, when it comes to policy BBE, in terms of what we do about our vacancies, we have some options, and one of which we're doing tonight, which kind of announced the vacancy. So that would be Zone 1, that would be vacant at this point with her resignation. And so kind of the option moving forward, and kind of where I would like to recommend as chair, is that we advertise the position for a minimum of 20 days, like our policy reads, accept applications for the position, so that we can get that position filled as soon as we are able to. I think it's important as we head down the strategic planning path that we have a full 7-member board, because we want as many kind of diverse opinions and thoughts involved in that process from the board level. So I'm really wanting to make sure that we can fill that role here in a future meeting. So any questions, comments, or anything you'd like to add, Dr. Bernal?
No, nothing to add. I would agree with your proposed recommendation.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from other board members? All right. I'm not seeing none. And I just wanted to double check. I don't know that we need to have a formal vote on that, is the one clarification I wanted. I don't know, Dr. Bernal or Ms. Miller.
You just need to accept her resignation and declare the vacancy.
Okay. And I am accepting a resignation, and so we'll declare zone 1 as vacant. And then if we can kind of get the application out on our website and get it distributed out so that the community can apply, and then we can at a future meeting interview those candidates and ultimately appoint someone to zone 1. All right. All right. Before we move on from your section, Dr. Bernal, anything else from your end? Okay. All right. Next, we'll go to our Chief Financial Officer's report. Ms. Kara Flath again.
Hi. So in your packet, I included the final year. I don't know why I insist on showing you this. Your year-end 2021 balances. In a note, general fund is 404,000 as a balance that rolls over to the next year. And just reminding you, we only booked 11 of the 12 school fund payments because we're trying to just change that practice, and it was an opportunity to do that. So it would have been higher, so it wasn't a bad year by any means. And the other things to note is our enterprise zone project fund did have 533,000, which is almost what we're spending on the Dow's gym, the Kurtz gym. And we did end the nutrition services fund with almost 79,000, which I think is noteworthy because it's a difficult fund to stay positive in and without making accommodations such as transferring general fund monies over there. And part of that, majority of that, 75,000 of that is because there were year-end grants that they gave out. There was a surplus of some sort at ODEs. So we got that grant right at the end of the year. So that's good news for us. The other large amount is the textbook replacement fund is 552,000. However, this year is the English language adoption curriculum, which is the most expensive one. So we've budgeted 750,000 for that particular adoption process and hope that stays under that amount. I also included your I think this month's December financial summary in the bank, so to say, in the district total is $10 million, majority of which is because November and December are large tax deposit months for the county that the school fund gets. So that's been a good thing. And last year I kept saying the tax returns from the county seem to be low, but this year they have certainly picked back up. So that is really positive news. A few quick updates that I'll give you. The district is working on a cooperative agreement, possibly with Sherman County, to do some transportation assistance. So essentially they have a difficult time with keeping bus drivers and then managing it. We happen to have a really great transportation director who actually used to work in Sherman County. So that's kind of where our connection started. So we've been in discussions with them. The thing it will require is 1, a cooperative agreement with Sherman County, but 2, the district will have to buy an additional 5 buses to take this cooperative agreement on. And so one proposal I'll probably make to you folks shortly, assuming that we move forward with this, is to do a 3-year loan to purchase the 5 school buses. So it's not buses we have on hand. We don't have that many excess. So we would have to do it. My proposal would be a 3-year loan because we can't output 500,000 to buy new buses or even used buses we're looking at. So the 3-year loan would be the term, also what we agree to in the cooperative agreement. So they would go hand in hand. And there's a lot of legwork still to do. I just wanted to give you that quick update. So the Kurtz gym still does not have heating and cooling, much to our dismay, and we had hoped it would be in there. Of course, this is a manufacturer's distribution problem, which has been felt all the way around. So we still do not have a tentative delivery date. In addition to that, we are closing out the grant. And when we first started looking at this project and budgeting out, there were some things that were originally built in there that we cut out because we thought we would be over. We did not spend all of our contingency. So we're looking at adding some small items back into the project. So it may delay it we're also still waiting for the heaters. So there's simple things such as, I'm not sure if anybody's had the opportunity to go into Kurt's gym and see it, but the floor has an epoxy finish on it. It's pretty. It's really quite pretty, but we're looking at finishing that epoxy finish down the stairs to the gym and then maybe up to the side where you go up to the classroom, and refinishing one section of the bar they had to cut through to get a lift in there. So we're looking at refinishing that. Some of those small things, but it will take additional time to get that done. So that may put a little kink in the complete availability. And also we're looking at a grand reopening as part of our historical value preservation agreement is to have a grand reopening, and we're inviting in groups to do that. And so it's going to put those off a little bit, which I think it'll be great to have whatever we can get done in the gym done by then. So we're still working on that. Last month, I did present the high school pavilion. That's in the bane of my existence, but it'll be great when it's finished, to the Landmarks Commission. They did approve that December, so we were able to move forward with that purchase. The manufacturing, which is same story, different day, is 16 weeks from that date that we put that in. So we're probably still looking at summertime to get that in, which will be great when we do get that in, but it's still going to take a little more time. Chenoweth Elementary, we did, one of the things we've been working on is trying to create more seating area. The weather's not great right now, but we do finally have the picnic tables that we need for the outdoor eating area. And the canopy is up. I did not have a chance to go look at it, but it got finished on Monday of this week. So I hear it's really quite nice. And then again, we are looking through the walk audit. That's the final results are coming out soon. And then after that walk audit there's an opportunity to apply for construction grants. I believe those are open February 1st, and we would collaborate with either the city of Wasco or Wasco County, or the city of the Dalles, or Wasco County, and kind of work on that collaboratively. I think they're accommodating to that. There's also some education funds we can apply for. So I'm going to look forward to those applications February 1st. We are also looking at applying for another seismic grant. I've initiated ZCS on some initial conversations to look at Chenoweth Elementary and whether or not that's feasible for a seismic grant. That is one school that we know we need to do some roofing repairs and some issues, and it would be nice to kind of kill two birds with one stone and make it seismic and get a little of the roof replaced by them and the rest of the roof replaced by us. It's kind of inevitable. And the last thing was, and I think it came up, that we did get the wellness grant from the Oregon Educators Association, $30,000, $15,000 from the grant. This grant will give up to $100,000, so it'll roll over from year to year, assuming they like our plan and we move forward. But it does require a 50% match. Some of that can be in kind, which will be the wellness committee, but certainly we'll be out looking for donations. So if anybody knows of any organizations or groups that love to contribute to our staff wellness at the district, let me know. I would be more than happy to see if we can get some funds there. That is kind of a really quick overview of projects and highlights where the district finances are at this moment. We're looking pretty good. Still on track, have some requests coming for you. Any questions on that part?
Director Rasmussen?
Thank you. Sorry, my cat wanted to walk across my desk. Sorry. On the third bullet, Kara, you talk about some of the costs weren't as high as anticipated. So you're looking at what items could be added back into the project for completion. Can you tell me approximately how much? I have a couple more questions too, but do you know how much
funding we had?
Yeah, how much like leeway you had in the budget?
It's not much. So out of $2.3 million, it's about 50,000, but I'm a penny pincher. So we're trying to figure out collaboratively everything that we can spend that money on. So it's not a lot, but it's enough we could get a few things done.
Okay. And then in that sentence, it says it wasn't as anticipated. It wasn't as high as anticipated for the district and contractors. It's like contactors. So that needs to be fixed. But I had another question about the wellness grant. So it says it requires a 50% match. Have we secured that match yet, or is that anticipated?
Yep, I have not secured that match yet. And let me, the contractors, we actually have a construction contractor and an architect, and they both built in contingency amounts. So between those two contingencies and the contingency of the grant itself, that's where the extra comes from. Yes, the wellness grant, we have not secured the match yet. It came up pretty late in December and had a quick turnaround. So I thought, well, if we get the application in and get the award, I will go figure out how to get the match. So still that's why I'm out looking for matches. Anyone have any ideas? Feel free to send them.
All right, any other questions or comments on the financial update? If not, I think we'll roll into the student enrollment.
Yep. So student enrollment, I had to do a little research on this because last month we had 2,765 enrolled. This month it dropped down to 2,721, which is the lowest to date. So I did a little digging, little research with principals, and there's a couple of things that happen. And one is primarily it's the 10-day drops. So we have students that do either travel home for the holidays, being out of country. So we have several students that go to Mexico for the Christmas holidays. They miss more than 10 days of school. We have to, by ODE rules, we have to drop them from our enrollment. They're not necessarily dropped as students because they will return. They'll come back on. So by February, we should see some of that come back. So it's kind of this lull that I guess happens every December, and it's not unusual. And we see that from year to year. So I'm not too concerned yet. I hope that dips back up to more of a 2765 or 2770. And it still keeps us close to the ballpark, which we funded ourselves. I submitted, with 2,840. So hopefully we get a little closer to that point. And the virtual academy is still at 150, which is just a few more than last month. I think a few students have transferred over to the virtual academy, but still pretty on track, and still, let's see what next month brings.
All right, any question from the board on just enrollment update? Okay. And then we also have a few action items for tonight as well, right?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. The first one, I'm not sure how familiar. I've been talking about eagles for a couple months now, but when did some research, there are 2 preserved eagles over in our Watonka campus. We do have one of those eagles are registered right now and has been registered. The other eagle, which is the one that I included in your packet, I can't exactly trace back where it's from. I asked a lot of people that have been in the area longer than I have. What I can find from old emails and information is that this particular eagle has come into the district's grasp somewhere between 1964 and 1968. So sometime between when Watonka was built and before 1968. So somewhere in that time frame. Apparently 1962 is the date where eagles were grandfathered in to not have to be registered. So this particular eagle, in talking with Fish, Wildlife and Parks of Oregon, we can add this to our registration that we have now. These 2 particular eagles are sitting in Watonka, unfortunately, and one of the things we're required to do is use them for educational purposes in order to keep the registered eagles. One of them I would propose we still keep under the district, but move it down to the D21 museum. Ramel is very excited to take that one on. I'm not sure where it will fit in her area, but I'll let her work through that. So still keeping the same eagle that we have. And there's 2, one that has its wings spread, which is this particular one. And then the one that we're keeping that does have news articles and history doesn't have its wings spread. And they're both golden eagles. They're both over the Christmas holiday. I did open both of the eagles because we're supposed to open them and spray them off and dust them every year. And I don't know when they were dusted last, but I'll say, as nervous as I was, nothing fell apart. They are quite intact and look pretty good. So I did get a hold of the Discovery Center because they've been good partners and they are local and they would be interested in taking this eagle. They couldn't necessarily take it right away, but I wanted to bring this to your attention, see if you're agreeable to transfer this one eagle over to the Discovery Center. They are able to take registered registered eagles because they already have licenses and they're able to accommodate that. And they will also do the education that's required behind having a registered eagle. So that was my proposal. And I included a picture of him when we pulled him or her out and cleaned him off. He was in pretty good shape and would like to propose we allow the Discovery Center to take this one.
All right. Any questions, comments regarding the potential of donating this golden eagle to the Discovery Center? And if not, I will entertain a motion on this action item. Director Nelson?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
So I approve the donation of one golden eagle to the Columbia Gorge Discovery Center.
All right.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we've got a motion by Director Nelson to approve excuse me, donation of one golden eagle to Discovery Center, seconded by Director Stevens. Excuse me, any further comment or discussion around that? Okay, I guess I'll just say it's cool that we're at least keeping one. And out. Ramel does a great job with the D21 museum there at Watonka. So, excuse me. Nothing further, then we'll go to a vote. Director Rasmussen?
Approve.
Okay. And Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Stevens?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. And the next one we have is funding for replacement Chromebooks, Ms. Flath.
Yes, so the district right now has about 3,400 or so Chromebooks. Over 2,000 of those are expiring this year. What essentially happens is the license expires, and when we don't have, it's not like you can just buy a new license for it. The Chromebooks, for as expensive as they aren't, do last for several years, and they've done a lot of work to make the licenses, the ones we purchase now would actually go to 2028. So this one will be, especially with doing distance learning last year, we had a lot of breakage. We had a lot that were kind of on the end of their useful life and just got put over the edge. So we've had a lot we've had to replace. And with these 2,000 expiring, I'm proposing at least 2,000 to 3,000, depending on what this will get. It is a chunk of change and something we have to build into our technology budget in the future because we won't have these kind of funds in the future. But to date, they've been very useful. We will continue to use those, and they are pretty vital to the district. So it would be most appropriate, given where we're at, to spend it out of the ESSER 2 funds. And we do have some partnership funds, which are part of Title I, that we can also use towards this project. But just asking for permission for the 500,000 so we can purchase these and move forward.
All right, any questions or comments? I guess from my end, I guess it'd be great to get at least from a quantity standpoint as close as we can to having kind of one-to-one, you know, with our 27, almost 2,800 student body across the district. It'd be great, you know, if we can kind of get to that point, because I know currently we're shy a little bit of that, but it'd be great to be able to do that, because I think even in non-pandemic, I think the use of technology is just going to be something that'll continue in education, and being able to have those in the hands of our kids, I think, is something that we need to do for them. So as best we can, I guess as close to one-to-one would be awesome. Any other comments or questions from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I will make, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve funding for replacing the Chromebooks as presented.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Dr. Stevens. All right, got a motion to approve the funding for the placing of Chromebooks as presented and seconded by Director Stevens. Any further dialogue around it? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. Director Rasmussen,
Aye.
Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Nelson,
Aye.
Director Stevens,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye as well. All right. The last report that we have tonight is a board attorney report. And do you have anything for us tonight, Mr. Corey?
I don't have anything for a report. I do have some information when we get to the new policies that are being proposed, but nothing else to report now.
Perfect. All right. Before we go on to the next, I just want to quickly double check with the board. It is 8:05, so we're just a little bit past our 2-hour time mark. Would we like to take a quick break or keep going through the agenda? Just keep going. Okay. Or Director Stevens?
No, keep going.
Keep going. Okay. All right. Then we will continue. So the next item is another action item. So our action item section, and it's the approval of resolution 20-22-02. And it's the resolution adding appropriations from the supplemental budget hearing. So Ms. Plath.
Yes, requesting your approval for this. Comments or feedback, but the bus appreciation fund, this is well over 10%, and that's, we received some Hedro money for bus replacements, 556,480. And then the local grant fund, this is one of those items we do not have anything budgeted in this support services, so it required being on the supplemental budget hearing. But this particular one we had in the past, we have received money for this Grow Your Own Teacher program where we get funds from one of the universities, and don't quote me on which one. But in addition to that, we had generally just been depositing it in the general fund and spending it out of there. It'd be more appropriate out of the local grant fund, because that truly is what it is, and that's what that fund's meant for. So I'd like to build that in there, and that would be where it's most appropriate. So that's where you see that particular item.
All right. Any questions from Ms. Plath on this appropriation? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I'll try again.
Go ahead, Director.
All right, so I make a motion to approve resolution 20-22-02, a resolution adding appropriations from supplemental budget hearing.
All right, do I've got a second on that one?
I'll second it.
All right, Director Stevens. So got a motion to approve resolution 20-22-02, resolution on adding appropriations from the supplemental budget hearing, seconded by Director Stevens. Any further comment or discussion around that? If not, we'll go to a vote. I'm seeing none. Director Rasmussen?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Stevens?
Aye.
All right, and the chair votes aye as well. All right. I think that covers all your action items, Ms. Plath.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Next is on to our policy updates, starting with first readings that we have this month. So first, we have policy JFC, which is student conduct. And so on this one, districts have multiple procedures to handle various types of complaints. These procedures prohibit retaliation for good faith reports. However, districts can also prohibit knowingly making false reports or knowingly providing false information as part of an investigation. So that's largely the language that we have highlighted in yellow. And I don't know if you have anything to add or comment, Dr. Bernal, on this specific one regarding student conduct.
No, only that it also includes the addition of that students can be subject to discipline, like if they're at a bus stop or they're at a school-sponsored event, while that they're at other schools on a school-sponsored event, like they're in another district at a school-sponsored event or anything like that, they can be disciplined for misconduct at anything that's affiliated when they're in a school-sponsored event. So that's additional language that was added here that wasn't there prior.
Okay, thank you for that. And does the board have any questions or comments regarding that language update there? Okay, if not, think about that update, and then we'll have our second reading in our February meeting. The next policy that we have for a first reading is policy JFCF. It's the hazing, harassment, intimidation, bullying, menacing, cyberbullying, teen dating violence, or domestic violence for students. And so for this one, House Bill 2631 that was passed by the 2021 legislature added requirements to notify parents or guardians of a student who was the subject of an act of harassment, intimidation, bullying, or cyberbullying, and the parents or guardians of a student who may have conducted an act of harassment, intimidation, bullying, or cyberbullying. House Bill 3041 also passed and revised the statutory definition of sexual orientation and added a new term defining gender identity in Oregon affecting protected classes. And so again, that is updated language as a result of those House bills from this most recent long session that happened. And on page 3, we do have, I guess, the choice on district official versus building principal. And Dr. Bernal, I don't know if you'd had a chance to inquire from our administrators what kind of the preference would be on that.
We would keep both in there,
Both?
which would be consistent with all of our other policies.
Okay.
Yeah, to have both titles in there. So it could be a district official or building principal.
And so would we want to remove the slash and do an and or kind of in between, or?
Yeah, we can do that. We can do an and or.
Okay. Okay. Anything else on that one, Dr. Bernal?
I have a question.
Yep, Dr.
So
Nelson.
on that second paragraph where it's underlined in yellow, how does that paragraph read? I mean, if you read it, how is it? My concern is, it seems like each student has a right to safe learning environment ought to go after that first sentence. And then, in other words, it needs to come before hazing, harassment, intimidation, menacing, bullying, and acts of cyberbullying by students, staff, or third parties towards students is strictly prohibited. It seems to me that then it should say each student has the right to a safe learning environment in the district. Is that the way it's supposed to read? Because I think all of that should come before teen dating violence is unacceptable behavior and prohibited. You see what I'm saying?
I might even recommend that you put it at the beginning of the paragraph. It's kind of the policy statement, and then it's further clarified by the other sentences.
Okay, so how would that read then, Jason?
I'd just say each student has the right to a safe learning environment, and then the rest of that paragraph would follow.
Okay, that sounds even better.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ring for me first time around. I'm reading that thing. That's not good.
Yeah. So we'll have that slight language revision for the second reading. Anything else, Director Nelson, that you?
No.
Okay. Or any other board member, any comment on JFCF? Okay. All right. The next policy that we have for first reading is policy JFCJ, weapons in schools. So the 2021 Oregon legislature passed Senate Bill 554, which includes amendments to ORS 166.360 and 166.370, and is now effective. Oregon law has allowed members of the public possessing a concealed carry license to carry firearms on district property in accordance with ORS 166.370 3G. Senate Bill 554 created a law that now allows districts to prohibit persons with concealed carry licenses from carrying firearms on school grounds by adopting a policy and posting notice at entry points. A person who is properly licensed to carry may still possess a firearm if the person is not otherwise prohibited from possessing, and if it is unloaded and locked in a motor vehicle and in accordance with law. To institute this prohibition, this requires a policy adopted by the board to identify all school grounds subject to policy and a notice posted on the board's website, and post appropriate signage at all normal points of entry to school grounds subject to policy and in accordance with the law. Law enforcement would still be permitted to carry, and the superintendent may still approve the use for district-sponsored activities. And so for this one, this is JFCJ is already an existing policy that we have. And so the language in here updates to be in alignment with the recent Senate Bill 554 that was passed. Any questions regarding these language additions or questions? And I guess the only one I have, and I think we'll talk about it a little bit on the next one, is that there is some alignment with this one and KGBB, which is the next first reading. So we'll talk about that more, but we may need to revise language accordingly. So with that, if there's no question, we'll move on to the next first reading, which is policy KGBB. And so this is firearms prohibited. And so I did want to have Mr. Corey kind of give us a little bit of an understanding of what the ORS really reads and how does Senate Bill 554 change that or make changes to the ORS and how it reads regarding public facilities like our schools.
Thank you, Chairman. The summary that you just gave a second ago really capsulizes it pretty well. But the background on it is that in the state of Oregon, in public buildings, firearms are prohibited unless there's an exception in the statute, which is ORS 166-370. has that general prohibition, and then it has a long list of exceptions to that general prohibition, one of which is if you have a concealed handler's license, then you are authorized to, under the current statute or the previous statute prior to Senate Bill 554, you were authorized to carry concealed if you had that license on school properties, in other state buildings, etc. And what Senate Bill 554 did was it removes, or it doesn't remove, but it gives the school districts the option to remove that as an exception to the prohibition for carrying or for having a firearm in a public building or on public school and in school district property. So the proposed KGBB policy is the memorialization of that, the withdrawal on the election, I should say, by the school district to not allow that exception to those with concealed carry permits. And so right now, again, without adopting that policy, there is no prohibition against those that have a concealed handler's license of bringing a firearm onto school district property. One of the things that Chair Aparicio mentioned was that one of the other exceptions in 166-370 provides or permits the possession of a firearm on school district property if it's in a locked vehicle and it is unloaded and you're otherwise allowed to have a firearm. So if you're a felon that's prohibited from having a firearm, even if you meet all the other requirements, you're still violating the statute, which could result in it being charged as a felony. If you the Senate Bill 554 didn't change that, didn't address that exception to having a weapon in the public and in the public building. But what it does, like I said, it addresses it. Senate Bill 554 does several things. The one that's relevant to us tonight is that it addresses regulation of the firearms in the public buildings. And despite that exception that exists in ORS 166-370, subparagraph 3G, authorizes the board to prohibit concealed carriers from bringing firearms onto school property or property that the school is controlling. And that is relevant. An example of that might be if the school district has rented a facility for an event, say for whatever reason, the school district is having an event at the Civic Auditorium rather than in the Dalles Auditorium, and it is entirely controlled by or rented out and controlled by the school district on that for that event. They could impose that similar prohibition, even though it's not actually a school district property, it's just controlled by the school district while they're leasing it. But for the most part, it applies to school district properties. And if this board, so the board has the option one of not imposing, or it has two options. The first option is it could not do anything, which would allow the exception to continue, that meaning that those with concealed carry permits would be allowed to come on school property without that prohibition. If the district decided to adopt the provisions that are in Senate Bill 554 and eliminate that exception to the that currently exists for folks with a concealed carry permit, the district would be required to put notification of that on its website and expend a fair amount of money in signage to notify folks at all really normal entry points to school district property. So that would be all doors, exterior doors. It would be gates to athletic fields. It would be the bus barn property. It would be the school, the district office, any place that the district has property. In fact, might even consider that it would be required to be posted at the property up on Columbia View Heights that's owned by the school district. Although I'm not sure that many people are going to be interested in carrying a firearm there. But so that's a policy decision for the board to make. And if you do decide to do that, then there's going to need to be some expenditure for the appropriate signage. I don't know if that helps give some background or not. If you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer those.
Yeah, no, thanks for the kind of background and just kind of information on that. I guess hearing that and just kind of trying to wrap my head around this, I think I have more questions than anything. And so I did want to propose to the board that we pull this policy and not have our second reading like we typically would have at our next meeting. And I think that because of just, there's a lot of nuances to this, and really, this is not, the Senate Bill 554 is not requiring us to have this policy. We actually have a decision in that. And in my mind, I think that is a decision that we shouldn't just make ourselves as a board. I think we need to engage our stakeholders in this conversation before we make a decision. And in my mind, some of those stakeholder groups that we need are things like our law enforcement partners, our staff, our parents, and there's a lot of people that I think we need to hear from before fully making a decision on whether this fits for D21. And so that's, I guess, my recommendation as chair is to pull it. We will not do a second reading. I think I'll work with Dr. Bernal, and whether this becomes a series of listening sessions that we have, a committee, or I'm not sure what form it'll take shape into, but I think that we need to make sure that we have a wide variety of feedback and thoughts on this from all the stakeholders before making a decision. Any questions on that recommendation from the board with this policy, Director Nelson?
So I have a question. Wouldn't it not also be advisable to pull the policy just before this JFCF? Because if we go ahead with this policy, it would also affect perhaps changes with the policy JFCF.
Yeah, that. Are you talking about the third paragraph?
Yeah.
That third paragraph. Yeah.
Yeah. To take both of those.
Yeah, agreed. We pull both of them.
Are we under? I guess. Let us look. I think it makes sense. I just want to make sure that there is no kind of timing on this one, because it is getting in alignment with legislation. We could look at wordsmithing or revising the language in paragraph 3, which does reference kind of some of the language in KGBB. So let us look at that, but I would be supportive of pulling both of those from a second reading next month. And I don't know if you know,
Jason, can you just clarify, because the policy JFCJ, the weapons in schools, that one is directed though at students, not outside people. That one is weapons in school and is directed at students, correct?
It is directed at students. That's the prohibition that applies directly to them.
So is there something in that, is there verbiage in that policy is there verbiage in policy KGBB that needs to be incorporated into this other policy?
Well, I think what Chair Aparicio is referring to is the reference to 166-370. That last sentence of that paragraph, that third paragraph, I understand the first couple of sentences, but I was hoping that I could get, and I didn't have a chance to hear back today on that, but I was hoping to get some clarification on that last sentence from OSBA, because it seems to contradict a little bit the initial portions of that paragraph that authorize the superintendent to allow possession of weapons for specific courses and things, because then it says it's prohibited under ORS 166-370, and I just whether that needs to stay off for the next month until even past the next month or not. Why don't I just kind of take responsibility to get that clarification on that and inform you of what I find out as to what it is that they're specifically meaning there, because again, it's a little incongruent to me.
Okay, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that policy JFCJ was students and not outside people with concealed weapons permits. This is directed at students inside our schools.
Yeah, because to me, those in that third paragraph, those last two sentences, what I interpret it as is it's trying to align and make reference to KGBB. So if we opt to not go, then in my mind, those last two sentences would be something we would strike from JFCJ.
And that might be true. So maybe we have Jason look into that for us.
Okay. All right. Any further comments on either JFCJ and KGBB since they're kind of in alignment? And like I said, Dr. Bernal, if there seems like everyone's in consensus, so we'll pull them, and then we'll look at how to survey and kind of engage the various stakeholders in our community. Okay. All right, and that concludes first readings for tonight, which leads us into second readings of policies, starting with policy GBNAA JHFF, which is suspected sexual conduct with students and reporting requirements. And so recent revisions to ORS 339 affecting reporting of child abuse and sexual conduct were adopted by the 2021 legislature. The passing of these bills revises the definition of sexual conduct and licensed administrator as it relates to reporting and helps define the persons who can be designated to receive and respond to these reports. Additionally, a new definition was added for commission licensee to distinguish between district employees suspected of sexual conduct that shall be reported to and investigated by TSPC, and those that shall be reported to and investigated by ODE. The effective date of these changes are immediate. Is there any questions or comments regarding GBNAA/JHFF? And just as a reminder, the red language is kind of as a result of some of our discussion on the first reading. So that's the difference between the blue, which is the updated language to align with recent legislation, and then red is kind of those updates off of our first reading commenting. If no comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion on the adoption of GBNAA JHFF. Director Nelson.
I move to adopt policy JBNAA/JHFF as presented.
All right, do I have a second? Director Rasmussen. So I've got a motion by Director Nelson to approve policy GBNAA/JHFF, the suspected sexual conduct with students and reporting requirements, seconded by Director Rasmussen. Any further discussion around that? If not, we'll move to a vote. Director Rasmussen.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Director Nelson.
Aye.
Director Stevens.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. Next is policy GBNAB/JHFE, suspected abuse of a child reporting requirements. And so again, recent revisions to ORS 339 affecting reporting of child abuse and sexual conduct were adopted by the 2021 legislature. The passing of these bills revises the definition of sexual conduct and licensed administrator as it relates to reporting and helps define the persons who can be designated to receive and respond to these reports. Additionally, a new definition was added for commission licensee to distinguish between district employees suspected of sexual conduct that shall be reported to and investigated by TSPC, and those that shall be reported to and investigated by ODE. The effective date of these changes are immediate. Any questions or comments regarding GBNAB/JHFE? And we don't have any red comments. We didn't have any adjustments from our first reading. So the blue language are the updates to align with updated legislation. Any questions, comments, or discussion around it? If not, I will entertain a motion for its adoption. Director Nelson?
I move to adopt GBNAB/JHFE as presented.
All right, do I have a
I'll second it.
Director Stevens. So we got a motion to approve the policy GBNAB/JHFE, suspected abusive child reporting requirements by Director Nelson, seconded by Director Stevens. Any further discussion? If not, I'm seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Director Rasmussen?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Stevens?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. So motion passes. Next is policy IB, freedom of expression. So House Bill 3041 revides a statutory definition of sexual orientation, and it removed gender identity and created a new definition for gender identity. So on this one, we did have some comments. So again, you'll see the blue language that is updated to align with the legislation that passed, and then there is red language in there on that final page based on our discussion during first reading. So any comments, questions, or discussion around these updates for policy IB? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion for its adoption then. Director Nelson.
I move to adopt policy IB as presented.
All right, do I have a second for that? Director Jones. All right, so we got a motion by Director Nelson to approve policy IB, the freedom of expression, seconded by Director Jones. Any further discussion, or seeing none, then we'll move to a vote. Director Rasmussen?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Stevens?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. All right. And last, in terms of our second reading policies tonight, is policy JB, the equal educational opportunity. House Bill 2935 added an aspect to the definition of discrimination in ORS 659.850 for race that includes physical characteristics historically associated with race, such as natural hair and hair texture. Another bill, House Bill 3041, revised the definition of sexual orientation and added a new definition for gender identity to the protected classes. And so with that, really the only update is to align with the updated legislation. We did not have any changes off our first reading. So any questions or comment on this one? And if not, then I will entertain a motion for its adoption. Director Nelson.
I move to adopt policy JB as presented.
All right, do I have a second for that? Director Jones. So we've got a motion by Director Nelson to adopt policy JB, equal educational opportunity, as presented, seconded by Director Jones. Any further discussion? And I'm seeing none, then we'll move to a vote. Starting with Director Rasmussen.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Director Nelson.
Aye.
Director Stevens.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. So that motion will pass. And that concludes our second reading for tonight. And with that, it brings us to the end of our agenda for tonight. So thank you, everyone. I know that was a lot to get through between reports and all these policies tonight. Thank you for joining us tonight. And with that, I will adjourn this meeting, and everyone have a great rest of your evening and night.